Can you start the recording? Thank
I
you.
just did. I just did. All right. I'm going to go ahead and have you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself. And I'll let you take it away while Kara is coming back on and off of the Zoom call.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for this invitation. Hello, everybody. My name is Octavio Gonzalez. I would call myself a garden rebel. I've been in landscaping for 35 years. I've been with the Pacific Landscape Management going on 10 years, which is a very long time. And my focus is always to work with HOAs on how to conserve resources, because we know that HOA dues continue to climb, and we try to find ways to help reduce that. I am also a sitting Tualatin council member of Tualatin, where I do very much of this kind of work, working with community and boards, which is a lot of fun. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Again, if my screen freezes, let's just hang tight and everything it catches up to each other. I think it's just part of the technology. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen.
That's dense.
All right, and let's see. And then when you all,
Hey, baby, get in there, sweetie.
all right, you guys can see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, let's go ahead and kick things off. So the goal of this class is to talk about how landscaping can become very expensive. And so what we've done is work with many communities on how we can save the landscape resources through conservation. So today, you're going to learn how to reduce your cost. You're going to learn how to enhance the community, and of course, how to extend the life. Let's see, the computer's a little bit slow.
Volunteer.
All right, if you could.
Octavio, you're completely frozen.
Can you hear me? Let's just give it a moment. Okay, here we go. If you guys can hear me.
Yes,
I
we
can hear.
Okay, give me 1 second there. There we go, I'm back. I knew it always happens in the beginning, so okay, we're back. Okay, so a little thing first about Pacific. Here are all of our locations. Our main office in Hillsborough, in Sherwood, Park Rose, Salem, and we are also up in Seattle market area. Our company is an all-phase landscape company. We only work with communities that are under our care. So if somebody called us and said, hey, we want a bark proposal, we decline. We like to save all of our resources for just our clients. We're all-phase landscape, construction, water conservation, snow and ice. We do a lot of downtown rooftop landscaping, highly customizable, rain gardens, aquatics, and of course, flowers. So I want to kick things off with what is sustainability? Water conservation, plant selection, and of course, rejuvenation and pruning, which is always the most difficult one to talk about, but we'll hit that one last. So today, I'm going to focus a little bit on that 4%. What you see here is what the average household utilizes in percentage rate on water, okay? Now, we're going to focus on the 4% for just a little bit. That seems to be the most recurring cost that we see sometimes going down the drain. Now, here is the cost of what the average water bill throughout the nation for a family of four, showering, cooking, landscaping, you name it. The Pacific Northwest is at $310 an average, which is pretty high. I still don't understand why Las Vegas, and when they don't get a lot of rain, is at $64. But nonetheless, this kind of gives you a snapshot of what the water bills are looking at nationwide. Okay. Here is what the water rates are locally. You can see Hillsborough has gone up quite a bit. Tigard, everybody is going up. And it doesn't seem to be changing quite a bit. So we try to find ways how we can reduce this recurring cost. Okay. Much of it has to do with inefficient irrigation, how it's an old system, a lot of grass. We like grass, but we also hate grass. And we'll share you some pictures also because grass is very expensive. And of course, how it's managed. This is probably the most delicate spot right here is how is water managed? We find that some landscaping companies just turn the irrigation on and let it ride until it's time to turn it off. And that's what we cannot do. But I wanted to at least highlight what these costs are looking like for everybody. Uh, if you're up in Washington, we'll skip this slide because their costs also go into business. It's high. Next slide. Hear me?
Kind of.
Let's just give it a moment. There you go. I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, sometimes when we have a lot of people logged in, that tends to happen, but it's okay. We'll get through it. So these are some of the things that we're seeing out there. Typically, we get these kinds of pictures when they're the sidewalks being watered. Okay. And that's really bad. And we see this often, especially specifically in HOAs, where they're trying to water a small little piece of grass, but they're watering everything just to keep it green. Very, very wasteful. And of course, that's just money going down the drain. Now, some of the things that we've done and what's out there with many landscape companies, okay, not just us, but it's important that you know this. I won't spend too much time with this, but every one of our HOA contracts comes with this smart controller at part of all the contracts. We've been able to convert all of our HOAs to this. This is probably the lowest hanging fruit, is to be able to turn the water off and on via your phone, via satellite. Now they can be pretty complex, but this is very simple. This is the lowest hanging fruit. This is called a smart controller. We use SmartLink, where if it's raining, we can turn it off from wherever we are at. In more advanced systems, we actually can put a little cup at your location where if it's raining, it senses it and it just turns it off. There's myriad of options out there, but this is probably you should do if you have a central controller as the first step to managing water effectively. Part of that is knowing where your zones are. We spend a lot of time building conservation plans for HOAs where we give you a map, and if there's a break somewhere, a phone call, it's the blue section, is a yellow section. It becomes more efficient. We consider water conservation probably the top priority in keeping that water from not going down the drain. You know, of course, we go through the system. In February is when we begin to check the system. Right now, the sun's starting to peak out a little bit. Most of our accounts are ready to go. We just turn the backflow on and we start programming. But this work should be done in February, March, after the frozen temperatures passed us, so that we can be ready. But if your system hasn't been checked right now, you're already behind. You're going to be catching up as the summer gets here. Here is a small example what a water conservation and saving looks like, okay? This is an HOA called Amber Glen Townhomes. It took a little bit of time because the controllers alone don't just do it. That is the first step. But in this HOA, we've been tracking their water bills for some time. This is a study that we did some time ago. They were able to save 26%. That savings varies from HOA. Some HOAs have central controllers. Some HOAs have battery controllers. Some HOAs have very inefficient systems and old. But the key thing is we gotta have a plan in place to slowly year over year begin to upgrade your system. It doesn't cost very much if you do a little bit at a time. But I wanted to show you examples on how you really can realize savings if you slowly begin to update the system. All right, we're going to move on a little bit to plant selection, okay? This is always the most important one. What is it? Why was it planted? Is it the right plant? It's very delicate in the HOA space because so many homeowners feel that the plants are theirs, and they are in a sense, but it belongs to the HOA. And it's always very important to have continuity, but sometimes when they plant their own plants, it could be a plant that wants to be 5 feet wide in a little small strip. But you got to work with your landscaper to get that right look and the right size. So you're not spending labor, and I'll show you what that means. I'm going to freeze again here. Give me a second. All right. This is just a small glimpse. This whole area here that you see as garden beds used to be grass. The cars would drive by at 34 miles an hour. No one really noticed it. but they were watering it, fertilizing it, they were throwing it all away and starting all over again. Very inefficient, okay? Here is an example of labor that shouldn't be spent. You can see here that this evergreen that wants to be 25 feet at the base has to be pruned maybe every 3 months. Is that labor that could be used elsewhere? Absolutely. Is this the right tree? No, it is not. And this is just one example of what we see out there in the HOAs in your communities. Wrong tree. It wants to be 25 feet. Look at these trees. These are Leland cypresses right next to the driveway. These grow 5 feet a year after they've been established. And this is what we see out there. People, it's already being limbed up. You're already having to spend landscape labor to lift this up and keep it off the sidewalk. This is absolutely the wrong tree. But these are the kinds of things that are out there. And I know that people don't like change, but this is how you save labor. When you're looking at a contract that's 25, when you're looking at any landscape contract, I would say 55% of a contract is labor. It's labor. And every year when you're looking at a contract increase between 4 and 7%, when you're looking at 4 to 7% as an average increase cost, it's because of high labor that can be avoided. Right now, this is a perfect time. We're going into this hot season. We're getting less rains. You're going to start seeing this kind of browning around the trees, okay? This is an example of where it should already be eliminated. Give me 1 second here, 1 moment here. My dog busted into the office, so I had to close my dog out. So this is just an example here of that you're going to start seeing throughout your communities. You're going to start seeing browning where the grass butts up to the tree. This is because the trees are starting to suck up all the moisture because they're not getting the rains needed. So why fertilize it? Why overseed it, mow it, and to start over? It's a losing battle. And this is prominent throughout our HOAs. Okay. Next slide. 1 moment here as we're moving to the next slide. I think when somebody joins in, it slows us down a little bit. This is for poor soil. It's too shady, and of course, competing with the trees, the water is. This is something that's an example of grass, once again, in an HOA. No one really noticed it. Not a lot of benefit. It gets watered, it gets fertilized, it gets mowed. People don't really go out there and have a picnic in this. It's just a waste. But it's these types of things that need to be identified in your community. This is what it was converted. This is across the way. This is what across the street looks like now. Both sides, much more efficient, all year color. There is no labor anymore to mow, to edge, to fertilize, to water. A little bit of pruning, a little bit of watering after established. That is it. But the goal is to not have to send the teams down there every week to mow that grass. This is what probably you see. This is an example of an HOA in the front lawn. This continues to be watered and overseeded, okay? Look at that. We see these all the time. We see valve boxes, fire hydrants, light poles. Somebody's edging and fertilizing around those things. How many of those do you have in your community? It's time to get rid of it. Look at that. The smallest lawnmower is 21 inches. So that has to be pruned with a weed eater. Let's just eliminate the grass. How many of these small locations are in your community that you can eliminate to save labor? Remember, 55% of a contract is labor. And if they're having to maintain these areas, could you cut back labor by not having these locations? Okay. This is a community in Lake Oswego that we've managed now for 8 years. This used to be all grass. I'll give you an example. This is no grass anymore. Here's an example that all of us, so here we have nice grass. These are the things that cause labor. So we would edge and that window would get splattered. That happened cars or garage doors as well when we edge. The mud on the sidewalk, the mushiness, the fertilizing for no value. This is the before, this is the after. We were able to, of course, do a small project, do some planting, do some hand pruning, but we were able to reduce costs significantly on the labor side of grass. For example, picture on the left, the trees are winning. Why keep that there? Let's just move it out. It's going to convert it. Here's an HOA in Lake Oswego. This is what it looked like when we came on the scene. Everything was being sheared. I don't know where it says that we have gardens. This is not natural. This was being sheared every single time. It took so much time. Those little pom-pom trees around, it took almost 45 minutes per tree. Every home had this. It was 44 homes. Here's the before and after. Before and after, the same community. Look at that location. Here's the after. Now, you can't do it all at once. We did the highest offenders first. We converted each slowly at a time. We stopped with the shearing. This community has not received a contract increase in 3 years. Okay. Here's the before. Here's the after. So when we talk about conservation, it isn't just water. The most expensive item we have is labor. And if we can find ways to make the landscape not be so high labor intensive, you begin to save dollars over time. It doesn't happen right away, but when you have maturing communities and maturing plants and you're seeing the shear come out, just know that there's an opportunity to save money. When you shear a shrub, you have to shear it almost 6-8 times a year to keep that round shape or the square shape. When you hand prune, we only have to hand prune twice a year. Less material to throw away, less labor, less pickup, less everything. Here's a whole block. Very vibrant. Now, some homeowners still want a little bit of grass, no problem, but they effectively reduce their costs significantly. Here on the left side, you can see the oak trees. They were winning, but it kept on getting refertilized, reseeded, re-edged. The white oaks were not going to give in. So the grass was removed as phase 1. Now, I don't have phase 2 yet. Phase 2 is they're going to apply some stones. Phase 3's a little bit of planting mix in there, and that's it, and they're done. No more mowing, no more edging or fertilizing. Here's another community. Look at all that shearing. Look at the little small turf there that had to be sheared, mowed. Again, the smallest lawnmower is 21 inches. So that means our guys would have to go get the lawnmower, the whip, and whip that down. This is what it looks like now. Very nice. Took a little bit of planting, plant the right trees, a little bit of weed control, but there really isn't any pruning that they had there before, as you can see. It also reduced the complaints. If you're a board member and you're volunteering in your community, think about the calls that you get each time when the landscaper didn't maintain that solid square line on that shrub or that round circle because it grew an inch, in the 3 weeks. Those calls will stop. It's because they don't need that to be the tree line. If you have a more natural hand pruning landscape, you avoid those phone calls from the community manager to the board members as well. But it's intentional. It takes time, but it's not very expensive if you do a little bit at a time. And we like to share these pictures as concepts. So as you walk around your community, you can start thinking about what it can possibly look like. What areas could you eliminate of little small areas? Now here is the before and after. Same location. Now, as a landscape maintenance company, we cannot get on a ladder. So we are limited to 12 feet. But it isn't 12 feet structure pruning. It's more 12 feet. Just cut the branch off the sidewalk so it doesn't hit somebody in the face. The picture on the left, that tree constantly needed to be pruned to get it off the face when people are walking. The little turf panel there had to be watered. Everything had to be watered to get that little thing to be greened up. So we switched it. We transplanted. You can see the picture on the right-hand side. We planted a different tree that grew upright, never needed to be pruned to get it out of people's face. We eliminated the grass, so we saved that labor time. Here's this little hinoki there that had to be pruned off that roof each time. It looks like a valuable specimen, and the homeowner didn't want to get rid of it, but it was affecting labor. So we removed it and we planted that one. Didn't really change much the look. It improved, allowed the maple tree on the left to grow a proper canopy. We no longer had to spend labor to prune it off the roof. It gave it a more aesthetically pleasing, a simple switch. No more arborist. Now, we are mindful that when it comes to arbor work, for us landscapers, we want 2 optimum pruning opportunities, but we're mindful of budget. So we always like to prune in June when all the leaves have leafed out. So we can see the way down, so we can limb up high. Ideally, we would like to prune when it's fall time. When we can see the cross beams. We can go in there aggressively, but we're mindful of budget. So we're always relegated to 1 pruning activity. That's typically in June. Here's a small turf panel that was grass was dying, and you'll see this constantly out there. But we learned that you see that window across the way up there? That sun was sitting there and reflecting on that grass and burning that grass each and every time. It was a losing battle. How many of those locations do you have in your community where you have reflective heat damaging the grass or the plants? So we converted it. No more mowing, no more edging, no more reseeding, nothing. It just took some time for us to sit there and look at where the sun was reflecting. I know those are true incidents. Here's the other side of it. This is that same community. Look at all those trees that we have to prune constantly off the sidewalk. So that's labor. Here's after. It actually improved the look. We reduced the labor demands, so the team now can focus on other details. Okay, but again, this little small change makes a huge difference over time. Okay, look at this. Who do you think is winning here? This was a wonderful grass when it was planted. You know, that maple tree did a great job, but now it's created a little bowl, so we had to get rid of it. But again, look at the root mass, the overshading, the ponding water, which drowned the grass. And this community was a new one that we took on. They had a pretty substantial reseeding budget just to reseed for nothing. We had to convert it. This is last year. This now, the second year of this, it looks absolutely more vibrant and more fuller. Now, I know I beat up on grass quite a bit, and we do like grass, trust me, but we see so much opportunity when it comes to grass. Now, moving on to trees a little bit. Is the arborist the problem? Okay. Where is it? What is its purpose? Okay. And what's the cost? Here is an example of a tree that was planted in a very small location that should never been allowed to become a big tree. Totally wrong tree. It messed up the sidewalk. You can see it there. That could have been removed a long time ago before it became a significant tree. Now they had to remove it, stump grind it, and plant something smaller that wouldn't give us this kind of problem. But you're seeing this kind of planting out there. And the arborist should be telling you, that's not prudent, let's get rid of it. And I know we love our trees. We love our trees. But the goal is to also love them responsibly. The infrastructure damage that this tree is causing outweighs that value of the tree. Now, you can still have the tree, let's just plant the correct one. Okay. All right, this is going to be a little video, okay? Let me just show it to you, okay?
Well, 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 well. Looked like a perfectly healthy pine, but it's on the ground. Well, I can tell you one thing. Too much mulch around the trunk of a tree can have this effect on them. The union between the roots and the trunk can get rotted by too much mulch, called a volcano effect. And I'd imagine right in here, there was probably a girdling root. The tree probably could have been thinned a little bit, reduce that wind cell. But here we are to clean up the after.
As one of my consultant arborists, that's a wonderful example. And I like to bring that up because when we are seeing bark dust out there being applied year over year on the shrubs, on the trees. Okay. Each time you have that much bark dust up against the bark, the plant wants to grow. For us, it's like growing another organ in our body. For the plant, it's like growing another root, highly taxing for the plant or the tree. So the tree becomes weak, becomes sick, more insect infested. If you just remove that bark dust away from the bark, maybe instead of adding bark dust and the cost for that, you spend the labor just fluffing the bark dust up. I know that a lot of HOAs have bark dust every other year in your budget. Well, maybe one of those times you spend those dollars on the labor just to fluff it and add a little bit less bark dust to avoid this problem. Because we're seeing plants die because they're kind of suffocating because they're so weak on the root structure because they have too much mulch. Okay. Oh, let me go back to this picture here. This is an example of, you see that branch right there on the very end, you can see how it was just lopped, okay? Each time you just lop a branch to get it off the roof, that tree is going to want to grow another 5 branches. Let's just eliminate that branch to the collar, okay? And we see this kind of work throughout. Now, when you put pressure on your landscaper maintenance guy to just prune it right there, this is what you're going to get because they're not arborists. They're just going to eliminate the problem just to get it off the roof, but because we heavily rely that the arborist, the ones that you're pruning they're going to do for the community, is going to fix that and cut it to the collar. So just be mindful when you see those kinds of prunes, okay? Here's another example of a planting that was done that the string was left. There's a rumor out there that just bury the string, bury the burlap bag. No. Take the string out. This tree ended up choking itself and eventually created like an hourglass effect. Okay. I don't have an after on this one, but this tree did fall over. We had to go in there and blow air into the roots, try to get it to spur new things, and it ended up falling over. All right. Look at this. This is a primary example of what we see out there quite a bit. So, and I get it, why the landscapers are just shearing it to get it off the sidewalk. But the amount of labor spent here, you could have replaced this tree with something else and move on the labor. That little shrub on the right-hand side, on the left side, on the picture, on the right picture, should have just been removed. But this is what's out there. So I implore you to walk your community. If you're seeing the shears to give space to the shrubs on the lower canopy of evergreen, it's time to transition either tree or remove those shrubs. Because typically when a community is planted, they plant more. But it doesn't mean that the evergreen has to be cut around to allow the shrub space. No, take the shrub out if you have the space. So this is pretty bad. This is an example. This is a cedar tree that wants to be 25 feet at the base. Do you see those shrubs in the bottom? They at least could have removed those and allow that tree to do its thing, but ultimately that tree needs to go. They could plant a weeping Alaska, give you the same effect, just needs to be the right tree. This is still small enough. They can still take it out before it becomes a big project, big expensive to the HOA. But it's these things that you need to be working with your landscaper to identify, to put a plan in place, and then slowly but surely begin to remove them and replace them. You won't lose the look. You'll just get the right tree in its place that won't need labor to keep it in its location. Look at this, Leland cypresses. Same. I get it. They want to hide those utility boxes, but notice the shrubs on the left. If anything else, they could just take those out and let the skirt go all the way to the bottom. Now, this is an example of the perfect tree in the right location. Look at this. This is a wonderful cedar tree. Plenty of space, has all it needs, good shading. This is the right location. But instead, these trees are being planted in 4-foot strips in front yards, next to the driveways, next to the doors. Okay. What do you think? Okay. Again, I get it. They want notice all of the vine maple on the far right. Notice the grass on the bottom. They could have just eliminated the grass, let the tree do its natural thing. Remove the vine maple on the far right. Remove the grass and let that tree do its thing. That's probably what the initial intent in the beginning, because when we're as landscapers, we plant in phases. Let's get planting first for the first 5 years, make it look nice and full. But as the mature permanent pillar items become bigger and bigger, you have to begin to remove the plants in its way so it can grow out like it's supposed to be. Okay. This is still there. This is a picture we took 4 weeks ago. We spoke to the HOA, but no, they're insisting leaving that tree like that and spending the labor to do this kind of pruning, which is very ineffective. Now here is the right trees, okay? The perfect, plenty of space. These trees are meant to be this way, no problem. Okay, but again, this is the right tree. Does it need to be removed off the buildings? Plenty of space for the lower plants. The right style, all good. This is what we're seeing out there, and this is probably more for many of the HOAs out there. So we see trees like this, and you can see where they've pruned. They just lopped it. Okay, you can see they just cut the branches. Okay. So now every one of those branches is going to grow 5 more branches on the ends, which is going to create more labor, and you have to prune it more frequently. If they would have cut those down to the collar, we'll see you in 2 years. But because they've just cut it without any intention, any structure, and this is probably the landscape maintenance company because they were just pruning it off the shrubs. You know, again, we rely on the arborist to come in once a year if you have a budget like that to correct these cuts. But it's these things that you need to be looking for when it comes to conservation. It isn't just get it done. And look at all that pruning going on around the landscape, all that round circles. I don't understand where it's supposed to be French colonial garden. It's not. This is Pacific Northwest, wispy, natural. You can have the same look without the shears. Right. I'll pause here for a second. Is there any questions so far from anybody? Or we can wait till the end. All right.
Octavio, sorry, I was trying to get unmuted. It's Karina. City of Wilsonville, I know they were looking at some water and sewer rate increases, and there was some question about whether the same impact would be for irrigation water. And I wasn't sure if you had any update on that.
I don't have an update on that, but I do know that Wilsonville, Hillsborough, Beaverton. Hillsborough started first. They began to ration water for the landscapes. So we have a couple of communities in Hillsborough where they turned off the irrigation for the grass in September, sometimes as early as August, because they're starting to ration the water. And we're seeing those kinds of policies come into the cities already. So I don't have the answer to what you were talking about, but I know that water is becoming a very sensitive subject when it comes to conservation.
Thank you.
All right.
Octavio, isn't there some law coming up relative to gas blowers and electrical
Yes.
blowers?
Yes. So it was already implemented in Portland, the city of Portland. It came in 2 years ago. They gave us a 2-year phase-in. Portland cities first. We have not heard any policies yet come into the other suburb cities, Wilsonville, Tiger, Tualatin, but talks are already coming. Every single city in Oregon has adopted a climate action plan. Okay. And in that climate action plan, each city is taking different steps. The first step, which is the lowest hanging fruit, is inspecting the swales. Okay. The cities used to inspect the swales every 4 to 6 years. Now it's every 2 years. They're hiring more people to check the swales, make sure they're compliant. And then after that, they're moving on to, okay, let's look at water conservation, spark controllers, irrigation rebates. Some cities already have irrigation rebates, which is like first come, first serve on the budget on a yearly basis. And we know that. So it's coming. Blower bans are coming. I know in Tualatin, we're dealing with that now as a council member. Wilsonville seems to be more aggressive on this environmental topic. So, but every city had to adopt a climate action plan this last 4 years. So Google your city, type in climate action plan for my city, and you will see the steps that are being taken and the work sessions that the councils are working through right now. And blower bans is on the top of the list, Denise. So
When you say swells, you mean like detention ponds and retention ponds?
Yes, the water quality swales. Yes, the lightest swales, all of those. They've been ignored for so long, but that's the first low-hanging fruit. The next one is tree ordinance, water conservation, irrigation rebates, and then they start moving into blowers and, of course, Norfolk gas for versus going to electric on the inside of the home. So there is a lot of graduating steps coming. So, all right. So the rejuvenation pruning, this is probably the hardest subject to talk about, but it's one that saves so much money for an HOA. It's not something that we do automatically. This is something that has to be approved by the board. We do classes on it. We provide information on it, before and afters, and I'll show you here. But I just want you to consider that I just shared a lot of pictures on what the shears do and the labor impact it has on plants. Death by 1,000 wounds. So rejuvenation pruning, what is it? Okay, I'm slowing down here again, but let me give it a second. All right. When do we do it? And will my plant grow back? All right. So here's the quick pictures on some before and afters. I like to show plants that we all see in our communities. This is the Nandina before, the after, and in the summer. We see this quite often, so we like to show you these kinds of plants. Look at the rhododendrons. Oh my. A picture on the left, look at the middle. And then one season, they're already growing. This is hard to see. And I know in the HOA space, we have a lot of rhododendron. Now, we don't have to go this drastic. Okay. Same location, one season. Roses, right after. All hand pruned. Here's Nandina again. This is probably what you're used to seeing. I don't know why people always strip the lower halves off. We cut it down to nothing. And here's what it looks like right now. Much more vibrant, much more healthier. You can see the hues that it's supposed to demonstrate. This is just one season. Now, we don't do this all the time. This has to be done when the plant is dormant, which is the winter. Okay? Very important. This is something that we begin to talk about now. And if the HOA says, yeah, let's do some of it. We do it in sections at a time. Let's do this section first, this year, let that go back, and so on and so on. Look at this. What do you guys see here? You see that bench there? You see all that hedging that's happening on that shrub. It's infested with moss. That has to be pruned so often. All right, so guess what we did? We took it down. Look at that. We took it down to the ankles. Do you think it'll grow back?
Oh, yeah.
Look at how much nicer it grew back. And that's it. Now we just maintain it by hand. Look at the flowers on the left. Huge difference. This is fall and now spring. What do you think the labor savings was on this? Quite significant.
Tremendous.
Okay. Again, you already have the plants there. All right. Let's look at the other side. Look at that. Look at how much labor. Look how many phone calls as a board member or community manager you will get because it doesn't look like that all the time. If it grows for 4 weeks, and when are the landscapers going to shear this? Okay. All right. We took it down to that. Ouch. I know it's quite drastic, but do you think it'll grow back?
But it looks so much cleaner. Just
Looks beautiful. Less labor, okay, less dumping cost. Again, when you're looking at a contract, a landscape, and it's 55% labor, with an average contract increase year over year between 3 and 7%, could you avoid those increases year over year? Could you reduce the cost of your plant replacement? Can you reduce the labor demands? Yes. You already have the plants there. You just got to have somebody walk you through this. And here we're showing you that and we're doing this often. Now, it is hard when somebody sees that pruning that just happened on the ankles. So we just don't do it. We have to go to the board meetings, show you the pictures, show you this befores and afters, and then do a sample section first, and then go. Here's before, after, and what it looks like now. Same plants, one season. So November, December, and then come February, March, you can see on the right-hand picture. All right, look at this. This is a good example of what we're seeing out there, okay? So that juniper skyrocket, that blue tree in the middle, that's supposed to be the star of the show. But because the landscaper hasn't thought to remove the lower plants, they've just been shearing everything to keep it in space. So that tree wants to be this tree. Okay. So what do? You either remove that tree or you remove all the lower shrubs. Because every one of the shrubs on the lower half are being sheared unnaturally. A ton of labor. Okay. Unnecessary. So you gotta pick. When you plant as much as you did on the left, it's because it's a new community, new plants. As they begin to develop, you slowly begin taking some out, plant, moving them to the right, give it the space. Okay, I know that we see this. We love our neighbors, we love our privacy, but this hedge here was beginning to rub on the car door. The person would come out of the car, it'd snag them on the elbow, snag their shirt. So we took it down. Will it grow back? Yes. Okay. Now, you don't have to do this every year. You can do this once every 8 years. But now on the picture on the right, we can now tip it to ends. Okay. Here's another one. This is more common. We did that, and now it's back. Look at that one there. This is a kind of dangerous spot because people will collide in there, especially the kids with bikes and skateboards. That was being hedged constantly. So we just took it down to that, and now it's there. This is one season. Okay, one season. Now, ideally, we would remove this completely and just plant boulders, some hostas, some heucheras and things like that. That way you avoid all that shearing all the time. All right, I know I've beat up grass quite a bit, okay, and pruning, okay. Coming towards the end here, but I just wanted to, so of course we have grass, we love our grass. A couple of things that we do have in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of moss, okay. Now, when it comes to moss, I know that you get proposals to get 2 applications either in November or in January. We like to do the January application because just enough to hold off the moss from growing back for when the sun shows up like now, and then the sun just burns it off and away you go. But if you're having these kinds of problems constantly and you're fertilizing and moss is coming, it's time to test the soil. It's not done often, but because we get so much water that all the nutrition just flushes away. So instead of constantly recurring moss applications and weed control, let's test the soil. A little bit of lime, that can fix some of those things. Again, every one of the things comes with an added cost. We do recommend thatching and aerating every other year. But again, if the moss is under control, because of soil test, you avoid those extra costs, okay? Now, for our company, we eliminated Roundup. Now, when you're using the store-bought fertilizers and weed controls, you're actually applying everything when you only have 2 types of weeds. We focus on those weeds only. So we try to apply as little chemicals as possible. So timing is very important, for a pre-emergent. Overseeding is something that should be done because though you have green grass, the grass does age. So you have to introduce young new seeds that could be tougher. It can close up faster, keeps the weeds away. Very important to do that as probably every 4 years, do a nice overseeding over the top as part of a budget process. Now, I do want to introduce you to this grass, okay? Now, we've all seen the crabgrass. It used to not be a problem at all for us. It would show up at the hottest time of the year, which is July. It was green. It looked like the grass that we have all year. We would mow it, no problem. And then come the first frost, it kills it. Now, because we are warming up here in Oregon, this grass is showing up in March, much earlier. And if it's there now, it's gonna spread and mostly take over between March and August. This will be everywhere. And then come next year, your grass is toast. We have had to change our ag program to do a pre-emergent on this grass. And so we've now moved our aerating and thatching to September for that reason. It's here now. Oregon is warmer. So this grass is taking hold. And if you see this grass, you typically will see it more on the edges of the sidewalk. You're going to have to do a reactive application, which costs more versus a pre-emergent. It's not we add it as an extra cost as a pre-emergent, but we hope by year 2, it's mostly under control. But this is something that you should go out there and take a look. And if you have it, you got to talk to your landscaper about this.
Octavio, we have a question in the
Yeah.
comments of what is the appropriate time of year to do the overseeding?
Okay, there's two optimal times, and it has to do with temperature. Temperature of under 70 degrees, which is right now, which is like between now and I think June, okay? Or you wait into the summer. So late August to September when the temperatures to begin to cool down. Those are the two optimum times. And we say that because we're going to start relying on nature's water. To what rains are coming, it's cooler, right? The morning fog, the morning mist. But if you have a really awesome irrigation system, you can seed anytime. But when we're looking at conservation, the two optimum times to have nature help us is early spring, late summer. All right. I've covered a lot of information. We started from removing turf, irrigation, trees, rejuvenation, pruning, a little bit of grass, okay? I'm at the end of what I had to say. I did thank you all, but this is the time where I can ask if you guys have any questions. Be happy to answer them.
I do. I do. Well, I comment, and I wanted to say here, I'm Stacy, and I have a, excuse me, we have a HOA here in Westland, very small community that we have right here. But it is very old. It's over almost 50 years old, and not much has ever been done, really. And so now I'm looking at this problem of course, they don't want to see things go away because things have overgrown. I mean, it's just ridiculous to the point of, I mean, between the grasses and the bushes and the trees. I mean, it's just now we're at a point too that I think it would be, and of course they're thinking of cost, but they rather let things just go or they have let things go, I guess. And now I just, I'm at a point where I'm not sure what to tell them to do. Um, yeah, and I mean, we've got arborvitaes here that are probably 20 feet tall and they're falling over. They're doing all kinds of different things. The trees are sucking up all of the grass, like you said, all the moisture from the grass. And then besides that, it's called hidden springs, is because we do have underlying water coming underneath it. So in the wintertime, especially, I mean, everything is just, I mean, it's like a swamp out there.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of the guys, they don't want to take their mowers back there because it just spins their wheels and stinks a lot of
Right.
times too. So I just don't know what to do with something that's such an old property with old plants. I mean, these plants have been here this long. I mean, they've always been here, you know. And people did freak out when, like, I took my trees out of my backyard that are up against a street, and people were freaking out about it. We've looked at those for 30 years. And I'm like, well, now
Yeah.
you're not. So,
Well, yeah.
it's too convincing people to. I mean, there's some changes that have to happen. I mean, and I know that they say, well, we don't have any of the money, but we've got to come up with some of the money to do it.
Well,
Otherwise, we're going to be.
Stacy, it first starts with what I just showed you. You now see it is possible to slowly transition, even
Oh,
mature.
yeah.
Okay, very slowly. I know people don't want to pay for it. They either pay for it now, or they pay for it with a special assessment, or they pay for it with a
Agreed.
reduced property value. Because
Hmm.
landscaping is how it feels. How does it feel when I drive into an HOA? And
Right.
that keeps the cost of the values of homes up. I know no one
I
wants to
agree.
pay for increased HOA dues, but unfortunately, when you have a 25-year-old community, you don't have to do it all in 1 year. You can just do the
Okay.
entrance first, the worst of
Okay.
eliminate the liabilities first, anything that's causing danger, and then you slowly start doing one house at a time. But it does take a class like this. It takes a board meeting, um, and examples that it can be done. It just takes time, but it requires a
Mhm.
little bit of cost, a little bit of budgeting. So.
Correct. Correct. Now, is there any way that we will be able to? Could I get something like this to present to the homeowners as far as what's happening? Because I think a lot of times too, people just kind of, if they don't make any waves, they just let things go, and
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? So is there any way that I can get something like this to present to the homeowners? Like, see, this is what could happen and this is, this is what it could look like? Because I
Well,
see
I
a
know.
lot of,
Yeah, I know this meeting is being recorded, so that's the first
okay,
step. Outside of that, without doing a pitch on Pacific, then you would have to bring
Hmm.
us and then we do it. But
Okay.
this could be shared with the community as as a starting point, and then
Okay.
from there you can decide on a good partner to
Hmm.
help you do this.
Right.
This will be available probably on the CMI website within a week or
Okay.
so.
All right.
Now, Octavio, I know we have a hand up. We also have a question in the chat
Yeah.
about what about crane fly infestation?
Okay. Well, the crane fly. So the crane fly, couple things. Um, it's here now. Okay. So any application that is done now, it's reactive to kill the larvae. Okay. Typically, we want to address the crane fly as we go into the summertime when the crane fly is trying to land on the grass, whittle its butt down to drop the new eggs for the next cycle. So typically, the crane fly stuff, there's two types of application. A reactive, which is right now because it's already here, you're seeing them. You got to do a treatment. Unfortunately, it has to be a chemical um, that has to be sprayed over the grass. Or if you do it proactively as part of your ag prank, you can do it either in July, August. It's so anecdotal. The landscape company will start seeing some activity, some of those cranes already showing up. Then you can do a granule application, or we do a different type of liquid application that kind of kills off about 85% of them. Okay, because you always need some of those to be in place because it also helps feed the birds and the ecosystem. But those are the two optimum times. And again, there's different schools of thought. If people say, "Well, I see it there, let's do it now." Yes, you definitely can on a reactive cost. But when we're dealing with an HOA environment where we have to blanket the community, we have to be very specific on the right timing. And that's typically we do our crane fly applications as we go into the summertime. That way, when the larva is feeding on your grass during the winter time, and then spring shows up and your grass is dead because it has no root system because the larva ate it. That's why we like to use that product during that time of the year, is to kill the larva so they're not jumping on the grass roots for next spring's cycle.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and let Lab Monster go, and then I'll get the other comment in the chat.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. Um, I wanted to ask about a lot of the pictures that you were talking about are taking out the trees or changing what the type they are. But in Portland, if I say it right, I think that you cannot just take the trees out now. So how do you address with that?
Okay, that's an excellent question. So, a couple of things. So, the cities have their municipal tree plans, okay, which Portland has a reputation of being the most arduous, the most difficult to work with, okay? Now, what you do need is kind of like a good lawyer, okay, which we are. And a good landscape company can go to the arborist department of the Portland city and say, this is what we want to do, and this is why. So, it's our expertise against them. What they want to see is that you're not going to be taking down a significant tree, a heritage tree, or a tree that has a massive canopy they call that a significant tree they can see through satellite. But if the goal is to remove the tree and plant back, they're okay with that. You just have to come with the plan. You just can't say, I'm filing a permit. I want to take this tree down because I don't like it, or it's no. This is the tree. This is the name. This is what it's doing. This is what it's costing me for my sidewalk, to my driveway, to my plumbing, to the gutter downspout, all that underground stuff. And I'm going to replace it with this. And then you have our good arborist who can talk the talk, and they will know that you're being serious about putting the tree back. But you really have to come in with those tools and prepared. Now we work with Portland very well. They know who we are as a company. They know that we are a renowned company, so they take us seriously when we file a report. If they want an arborist report, then we get an arborist report. Costs about $1,200 thereabouts, and then you go into the plan. Now, but if it's a significant tree, part of a tree of 50 or five, or and you have a huge row, that's a different conversation. But a front yard tree, a turf strip tree, they've become more flexible as long as you need to plant back.
Okay, thank you. And before you go, is the Pacific Landscape Management is the company that you are
Yeah.
explaining to?
Yes, I am Pacific. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have a comment in the, or a question in the chat. Oh, we have a really big question in the chat. Let me do the little one first. Should
Yeah.
rejuvenation pruning be done differently for different shrubs? Our landscape contractor pruned all of the shrubs to 12 inches to 18 inches high, and the evergreen shrubs have been struggling and have very few green lives after 18 months.
Yes. So I know there are some companies who have pruning teams where they prune everything one shot. They go. So yes, so there we have a specific list of the plants that we can prune when they're dormant. Okay, from November to January is our most optimum time to do the hard pruning. Now, we won't prune the hard pruning like the rejuvenation pruning for the plants that are winter flowers, like the Pieris andromedas, the camellias. Those we prune when they've done their blooming in April, March, April. We're done. So yes, there is a very specific list of when to prune certain ones. The evergreens, because they're tougher and hardier, typically evergreens aren't supposed to be sheared. Unfortunately, they're not. I know that people shape them like a cork. They round them. They make them like little cats and dogs. But if it's something like that, it's the most optimum time is when the tree is asleep, and that is the winter. If they're doing them in the hot summertime and they do a shear, you're going to see the browning, like a burn mark, just happen along a huge edge. If they're going to go hard when the plant is asleep, which is the winter time. That's the safest bet. If the plant is going to bloom in January, February, you have to wait for the hard pruning until it's done blooming, which is going to be March, May, April. And we avoid super hard pruning in the deep heat because you're really taking it to the plant. You're beating it up, cutting it up, thousand wounds, and then the sun's scorching it. The water's not much. Yeah, it's going to struggle. Hopefully that answered your question. But we do have a specific list that we follow uh, as part of our agricultural program.
Okay. The next comment or the next question we have is water rates continue to increase with the City of Portland's new transportation fee added on to the water bill. This will feel like a double increase, meaning the HOAs need to reduce water consumption. However, simply removing grass and blowing in bark dust, people tell me comes with two concerns. One, fire risk, when someone tosses their cigarette end into the bark dust. Two, when the leaf blowers come through, the bark dust is blown up the hardy plank siding, which then discolors, and the planks which can't be pressure washed off of the hardy is somewhat delicate. I welcome your response.
Okay. This is a very good one. So the fire. Okay. Sure. If we would deal with this too, somebody throws a cigarette out the window, it hits the turf strip with bark dust and begins to smolder, and we see those often. Um, it's hard to avoid that, but that is avoidable when you eliminate the grass, you put the bark dust, and you have a good plants in place. Okay, and then you have water. Bark dust, when done right now, if you install bark dust in July, August, September, it never really gets a chance to pack down and settle and really get packed down and create like a little shell. So by the time the leaf season comes, it's nice and soft and fluffy, and the blowers just blow it through. So we like to install bark dust as early as possible, even when, like right now, a little bit of rain, because in February, March, April, June, perfect because we're still getting some rains. The bark layer comes in, it packs down nicely. So when the blowers come out, it's hardly moving any fluffy bark dust to the level that you're discussing, because I've seen that before. And I've seen that when the bark dust was installed too late in the season, it's still hot, fluffy, dry. It's just like sawdust, just blowers just blowing it, and it's being picked up with the leaves as well. So when it comes to this kind of work, yes, remove the grass, bark it, couple of plants, and then when you have irrigation, the irrigation, because the bark just kind of creates three benefits. It prevents the weeds from coming in. It holds water retention. So if you're watering, that bark just it's moist underneath. And then it also helps provide nutrition. Okay. But again, you got to do the bark dust early in the season so it has time to pack down. Now, it's not perfect, but it is so much better when you do it earlier. So it has time to pack down, hard layer. And so when the guys are getting the blower and blowing the leaves around, it's only moving the bigger fibers, not all of it. So it's timing. Hopefully that answered that question.
Okay, next question is what type of driveway shrub would you suggest for an evergreen flowering but stays smaller than 3 by 3?
Wow. One of my favorites, if it's an evergreen, you like flowering evergreens? You know, evergreens tend to not flower, they tend to just change hues. Okay, so like I like the Chief Joseph. Okay, Chief Joseph is a small evergreen shrub. All right, it starts off green, but then it turns yellow as we go into the winter time. Okay, it doesn't lose its leaves at all. It doesn't produce a flower, but the color contrast is so brilliant. The other plant that grows and has a small color, because evergreens don't have flower unless it's like a camellia, right? It's an evergreen, it never loses its leaves. It's always dropping flowers, like the camellias. The other one is the yew plant. Okay,
Hmm.
the yew is columnar, especially the variety Hicksii. Hicksii yew that produces, it grows very columnar. The cancer cure drug was cultured from the yew, so now it's legal to plant them and cut them. But it also produces a berry, a red berry, and that red berry is what brings in the birds and those kinds of things. So there's a myriad of evergreens that are columnar, small spaces. Chief Joseph, the yew, the camellia that's been grafted to be in smaller spots. And then from there, you can start moving into weeping plants like one of my favorites is the hamamelis, I mean the weeping hemlock, which is a double trunk hemlock that grows short. And then from there you go into astilbes and hostas and green ant. I mean, there's just a myriad of plants that can fit. Even the sword ferns. The other one is the Danina domestica, which is the one I showed you that we lopped it to nothing. They call that the heavenly bamboo. Also, again, there's the list is endless for little small locations like that. I know it went kind of fast, but Chief Joseph, yew, variety Hicksii, uh, uh, a dwarf hemlock, um, camellia, and then the currant. You can do a rushing currant because that one does produce a flower, a pink, and it has a berry, but the stalk after the leaves fall off, it almost looks like it's paper bark as well. So it has a different interest as well. So again, we can go through all kinds of lists,
Yeah.
or
Thank
we
you,
can do the native,
Octavio.
or we can do the Oregon plant, the Mahonia nervosa, which is the I know the Latin names. It's the holly plant that you see, Oregon flower.
Yep. Isn't it better to plant? Is it better to plant native plants though?
Okay, let's talk about that. It's always people always talk about native plant. Let's go native, okay? Before you go native plants, you have to manage expectations, okay?
Hmm.
Because native plants look weedy. It looks
Okay.
messy. So if it's going to be a front yard, a front monument sign, I would say get consensus from the community first before you do natives because they tend to look messier. That's just
Okay.
their nature. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But you got to manage expectation. We plant, as a maintenance company, we try to plant plants that don't require a lot of labor. And
Right. Right.
the natives are better with insects, less water needed, but they also look messy. Okay. So
Okay.
as long as you're okay with that, yeah,
Oh
natives
yeah.
all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great though. Learned so much.
Any other questions for Octavio?
I'm sure we'll think of them, 2 hours from now.
Well, if you do, just send them my way or to the manager and we can ask Octavio for you.
Okay, Kara. Thank you, honey.
Well, if that's it, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. Be on the lookout for our next training. It will probably be in the summer.
Fantastic.
I
Thank
will
you.
I will close with this and say that it's very important that no matter who you're working with, that you do develop a 1 year, a 3 year, or a 5 year plan. Year one, liability. Year two, conservation. Year three and four, beautification. But most communities always focus on beautification first before dealing
Yeah.
with problems. So we always try to approach our budgets in that way. Okay.
Right.
Octavio, thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.